All right, folks, we're going to talk about Hurricane Helene now. Tulsi Gabbard put out this tweet, and I know it sucks to feature Tulsi Gabbard. We're all very angry. She is on our beep list, I'll say, since this is the first 15 seconds of the clip. But she did get some impressive footage, and to her credit, she's on the ground there, which is more than we could say for certain government leaders at the moment. So we're going to play this video here.
Touchdown, we were able to get on a helicopter so we could get a bird's eye view of the Lake Lure and Chimney Rock area.
This is the whole team right here for the town.
Sorry for everything that's happened. And it's hard to put into words what that devastation is and what it's going to take for them to even begin to start thinking about rebuilding. It's going to be a long road ahead.
So this is the operation. We're so fortunate to be so loved by everybody. We haven't had a natural disaster like this in Western North Carolina in a very long time. So the outpouring is amazing, and as you can see, volunteers galore, and it's just, so heartfelt.
It is incredible. How far are people traveling to come here, both to help but also to get the supplies they need?
To help from all over, Florida, Michigan, the Northeast. They're driving an exorbitant amount of distance to come here. As far as a volunteer, all over South Carolina and Eastern North Carolina, Georgia.
The rebuilding here is just going to be so expensive.
Yeah.
I own the Chimney Rock Inn.
Okay.
A third of the back is missing, completely wiped out.
See where the blue styrofoam is at?
Yep.
Our apartment was right under that. Everything
Wow.
is completely. You got the mountains around, everything gets funneled in there, and so you get this raging torrent, wall of water, 20, 40 feet deep. It comes down the river, rock, mud, trees, houses, buildings, and it's just like a giant bulldozer slamming everything. It just kind of clears it all out.
But anything you can do to keep us alive. I don't know what kind of water. We got water in MREs. We got some of that stuff. We're ready for the apocalypse. We need help building this road back. We need a big retaining wall. We need the park reopened. We need this road all the way up. That's the kind of help we need.
Yeah.
We got chainsaws. We got water.
Yep.
We need structure.
Yep. Appreciate my best.
We definitely appreciate you being here, though.
Well, that's, the smallest thing we can do is just try to lift up your voices and your stories and what the needs really are here. Glenn, nice to meet you. Tulsi, thanks for what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
It should be clear all the way down.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Good to
guys.
see you.
We're strong. We just need help.
Yeah.
So, what that woman says there says a lot. She says, look, we have lumber, we have water, we have goods, we need structures, meaning you need a government response. Like, there are certain responses that only the government is capable of performing because they're too big and too vital and too expensive to be done by sort of individual people or even individual groups without that kind of spending power. And where is the government? We're going to talk about FEMA in the next segment. But, when Katrina hit, George W. Bush was a lame duck. It was in 2005. He didn't have to face the people for a vote ever again. When Sandy hit in 2012, notice Obama made a point to be very hands-on to the point where Chris Christie got in trouble because Chris Christie was hugging him and praising him the week before the election, even though Chris Christie was Mitt Romney's basically his top surrogate until that moment. Where is the government now? I mean, this is a desperate situation affecting such huge swaths of the country, including, as we'll do a couple segments from now, some very critical swing states that could very, very easily decide who wins and who loses. And so, there are moments like this where you just look at, again, so folks, I'm sorry, but this is just another symptom of the collapse of the country. It just is. I mean, since when does a government act this casually? The month before Election Day. It's October. You have this huge band of the country in ruins. You have people digging corpses up. You have people missing. You have entire towns that have been wiped out, towns that are inaccessible to civilians because the roads are flooded out. and eaten out by mudslides. How can you be this absent? How? Like, this in the face of what is supposedly the existential threat of Donald Trump winning? The incumbent party, the incumbent vice president, goes on camera and says, you can apply for your $750 of immediate relief if you can access a computer somewhere. And a lot of people are being rejected for that if they have homeowners insurance. I mean, it's just a nightmare. It's just a nightmare. You talk about a psyop. Everyday life has become a psyop. This is a trivial comparison. I tried to get a basic TV package hooked up because I don't have TV, but I want to watch the baseball playoffs. I was on the phone for 3 hours trying to get it hooked up. Again, very trivial concern compared to this. But nothing works anymore. Nothing is right in the country anymore. To the point where a month before Election Day, the president and the vice president can't get into these areas. Tulsi Gabbard goes there with a camera. I mean, it is a sad state of affairs. It really is. Like I said, I'm really trying, folks, not to go to that place tonight. I'm really making an effort. I hope you appreciate it. I hope it's not in vain. I hope it's being recognized.
Keaton has stared too long into the void.
Yeah.
And it stares back into him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's the element that Marx described of late stage capitalism being defined by capital eating the state. I think
Yes,
we're well
of
into
course.
that process where capital has devoured a lot of public services and the money needed to finance public services. I think it's also, honestly, we don't have a president right now. And there are certain executive functions that a president executes. With foreign policy, I think they have long done foreign policy without the president, as Trump discovered when he tried to have his own foreign policy. And they literally did things against his wishes. And he's not the first president to have that experience. This has happened to other presidents. They just haven't been as publicly complaining about what they're doing. I think they are not as well prepared to run domestic policy without a president. I honestly think that's part of what's going on here. I think there's no one steering the ship, and the institutions of state are kind of hollowed out.
Right.
And you don't have anybody to say, go to this election. Right. I don't even think he's capable of that at this point. I think that's part of why this is going down like that. Of course, it's October. If you had any kind of like a president,
it's October.
They'd be releasing billions of dollars from different sources, whatever they had to do, call in the National Guard, whatever they had to do. I don't think there's anyone to do that. And unlike with foreign policy, they just don't have worked out how to function without a president. Because I think they've been running foreign policy like that since Kennedy. They have that worked out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, foreign policy is sort of on autopilot, right? It just kind of runs itself at this time. But now when you have a situation where you actually need like a human executive to make very quick, real-time decisions, there's nobody home. There's nobody home. And look, Hitler's about to win. Trump's about to, I mean, Trump could win. I mean, it's a 50-50. Trump's going to win.
And Kamala,
it's October.
Kamala is a media creation and barely that.
Right. And what you're seeing, a backfiring, the strategy that the Democrats employed, not unwisely, was to make Kamala as generic as possible, make her as nondescript as possible. Polling showed a generic Democrat beat Trump, so make her as generic as possible. That only works under certain circumstances. Generic in a crisis doesn't cut it, because this actually requires decision making. I mean, there was that brief piece of sound where she talked about you can get your $750 for immediate relief. And no, that's not all the relief people are getting, but that's for like immediate goods, right? If you don't have access to the bank account or whatever. But again, you have to apply, you have to get approved. How do you apply? If you got homeowners, it's hell. It's hell. It is a matrix of bureaucracy that just moves at a snail's pace, if it moves at all. And the fact that it's so complicated serves as a deterrent from people trying to get it. Oh, I'll never get that $750. Why even try? Right? Yeah, it is unbelievable, but I think you're right. I think that explains it. I think there are certain things that are big enough to the point where, all right, we got Anthony Blinken, we got Jake Sullivan, they're sort of keeping the big global project, more or less on track. When it comes to this, no. That this requires a certain level of hands-onness, if you will.
Right.
That's just not there. They're not capable of doing it.
Well, because the concerns of the deep state are not domestic, except in destroying and suppressing any kind of dissent.
Right.
In terms of dealing with hurricanes, let the executive deal with that. You don't have an executive. There's nobody in place to do it.
Please clap.